The title of the webinar is Nourishing the Soul, the Role of Food in Our Emotional Well-Being. Again, a mouthful, but we're going to get into it in just a moment. As a reminder, our sessions for Food for Thought, they're overarching, they're high-level topics. What I mean by that is you are welcome to ask whatever questions that you might have and direct them to Jen. But what we won't be doing is getting into specific case diagnosis, meaning if you have a specific question related to something that's going on with you, it's not to say that we can't address it, and we will, but we'll do so at another time. I will give you Jen's contact information and my contact information when the webinar is over today. So that said, I want to welcome Jen, and we're just going to get right into it. Before we even get into the juicy details of this topic, I just want to level set where we're going. Would you just take a second and tell us what you mean by emotional well-being? We know those two words, but how does that translate for you, and where are we going to go with this today?
Well, we can go so many different places with this today, obviously, and I know we will. I think big picture, the word that I land on when I think about emotional well-being is balance. And we talk a lot about finding the balance in our bodies, in the way we eat, the way we choose foods, and the way we react, maybe emotionally. So I've been thinking a lot about this because sometimes we can be very off balance, where we might be very, very zingy or very, very reactive. And that can be problematic. One of the phrases that I love to think about and use is choosing sort of faith rather than fear. So if we're in a very big place of fear, then we're very reactive, we're very zingy, we're very stressed. If we're in a place of imbalance on the other side of the pendulum, where we're maybe not feeling enough, and so we're shoving our feelings, we're putting on our happy mask, and we're not really being all that present with our feelings. So I believe there's a place in the middle. We're not always going to just be there in that very perfect balanced place. We're going to a little, but let's not do the really giant swings as much as possible.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I know you and I talked a little bit about this offline, but I feel like the word well-being is now starting to take the place of the word wellness. And the reality is it sounds like a simple word. Most of us know what wellness, we think we know what it is, but it has become this broad term that people are defining in their own unique way. And as we dive deeper into wellness, well-being, we're starting to see there's some clear silos. And I feel like for our listeners, just to compartmentalize the topic, emotional well-being is one of those silos. And as Jen mentioned, for all of us, I hate to use the word goal, right? But what we're striving for is, as she mentioned, which is this balance. And knowing when we are not feeling balanced is super important when it comes to this emotional component for our healing journey. So that was an awesome explanation, and I'm hopeful if you all are on the call and you feel comfortable, go ahead and type in the chat that you understand this component of emotional well-being, that nobody has any questions. And if you do, please feel free to ask the question now, because again, it kind of sets the stage for the rest of the chat. And as you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and give Jen the next question. So if we are talking about emotional well-being, which kind of strikes me as the word emotions, what would you say is food's role in a high level overview of how does food fit into the whole part of emotional well-being? It is a little bit of what you just touched on, but will you take it a little deeper?
Yeah, you bet. I believe that food, first of all, can really feed us in many different ways. So yes, we get the nutrients from it, from the food itself, but we also can get this emotional feeling from food. Right. And we also talked about this offline, but sometimes I feel like people might think, oh, here's my comfort food. It's it could be junk food. It could be going to the McDonald's parking lot and, the drive through, and you go through and you get your whatever it is and you eat it. And maybe in the moment, it feels like this is an emotionally healing food for me. It's making me feel better. And it don't believe that that lasts for very long.
That's right.
So there's definitely an emotional component to food. I believe that we can be very connected to our food in a really beautiful way. And that can in turn make us feel really good emotionally. So when we connect with our food, even when you think about prayer, and there's a
Yes.
reason why people pray and give thanks to their plate or their food and the people around them. That's a good feeling that makes us feel good rather than low. And
Yeah.
that's what we're wanting. We're wanting nourishment to our heart and our soul.
For
Um,
what we're trying to accomplish with the way that we want to feel, which is
exactly.
awesome because your example of the emotional hug going through the drive-through feels
Mhm.
quite different than the emotional per se hug when we're eating clean eating food and we're praying over it. And I did want to comment what a beautiful way, faith over fear. And of course, as you know, that resonates tremendously with this team and what we're about. So I think where we go next with this is understanding that before we can connect emotional well-being with anything, there needs to be this awareness. And an awareness means that we've stopped long enough to be able to identify a scenario like, how do I feel after I get that emotional hug from the McDonald's hamburger in comparison to the feeling that I get when I'm praying over my food, when I am trusting, when I have that faith over fear. Believe it or not, there are many. And I think as a society, many of us tend to be asleep when it comes to this awareness. So just us being knowledgeable may really open up a whole spectrum of opportunities. I love that. It's almost like the fork in the road. Do you stop long enough to see it? Can you see the emotions that are wrapped around this decision, the emotions that are wrapped around that decision? So I really, I really, again, for our listeners, the awareness piece, I think, do you want to touch on that even a little bit more? Is the
Yeah.
things that you do that make this emotional component easily identifiable, or where somebody starts with this process?
Yeah. I think yes. And, it's there's a lot of research and there's a lot of trainings out there. In fact, one of our team members just went through a mindfulness eating training.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're very mindful, so we're looking at our food, we're tasting our food. I think a lot of times, how many times have we sat down and everybody just starts garbling up everything? They're not really present. You're
Right.
not tasting it. You're not smelling it. This, from a physical component, is very important too. To smell your food, that starts the saliva going, that starts the enzymes so the body can digest more easily. You're present with your food. I think there's also something to be said about, even if not all of us can have some big garden. I certainly don't have a big garden right now, but being able to grow some of your food, even if it's some broccoli sprouts on the kitchen counter,
Mm-hmm.
where you have this connection with what you're putting in your body, that helps us emotionally.
I agree.
Just does.
Side note, I just was gifted, one of my children gave me a hydroponic countertop garden. And to your
Mhm.
point, that thing brings me so much joy. I tell you, when
Right?
it's growing up my arugula and
Mhm.
some basil and some mint, it's just it sounds little, but these things are big. And when
Okay.
you are watching something that you are a part of creation and then you get to enjoy that, that is a connection of presence like no other. And to your point, there's all different ways, no matter what pocket of the earth you live. Just as I mentioned, we are dreary and rainy and still not quite into spring, but that hydroponic garden is like gardener proof, or non-gardener proof, I should say. Somebody who doesn't even have any desire to do so, but you just want to enjoy and watch and be a part of your food ceremony, I'll call it, so which is great. What other things do you do in terms of mindfulness practices for emotional well-being in this arena?
Yeah, I'm going to just say really quickly, another quick connection for our food is, if you have a farmer's market,
Yes.
if you can go to the farmer's market and get to know a little bit the people that are growing the food, that
Mm,
also bring, I get goosebumps just saying
me
that, but
too.
that brings a really beautiful connection. You bring it home and it just feels good. Another thing, one of the things I do is I like to take my vegetables. So I did a recent post about this, but I make a little bit of a bouquet in my
Oh.
fridge. And so when I open it up, I'm like, oh, look at that. And you can preserve your veggies. So I brought, say, asparagus home and I got some of that broccoli rabe, that small
Mm.
broccoli, and I cleaned it up and I trimmed off the bottom like you would flowers. I put filtered water in a glass and I put it in. And then I open up the
Jen,
fridge.
I love that.
And it keeps it super fresh too. So it's crispy and yummy. So
So
there's
you
just
all heard that. Remission Nutrition on their social media. I'm going to go after that. I love me some good flowers. So now
right.
making them with broccoli rabe. I
Exactly. And you
love it.
can put kale in. I'll do that. Or herbs. Herbs stay really nicely too. And you buy them, you get them home, you clean them up, and then you snip off the bottom, put them in some filtered water, and it'll keep them longer. And then they're right in your face too. So
Yeah.
you use them. So you can
The,
clip off.
the word that's coming to mind as you're speaking on this is connection.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not to trivialize what we were talking about, because these are small steps that lead to a bigger picture. And what's the bigger picture? We are all wanting to do the best job that we can do in a way where we're stepping forward towards healing and all aspects of the journey and making these kinds of decisions, this connection with food and community goes a long way with that emotional component. And I just visited your beautiful state, so I know that Denver must have some amazing farmers markets. We happen to have some wonderful markets here in Maryland as well. And for our listeners who have not had the pleasure of going to one of those, I highly encourage you to do so because she's spot on. When you go there and you make it, this is part of a ritual. This is part of it's not just about going someplace different to get your food. It is about making this connection with these beautiful. I love it when they set up the fruits and vegetables stand next to the flower mart. You know, you come out of there with this basket of stuff and you just feel like you've done something great for the community, for the farmers, for the environment, because you're not touting any plastics. And my goal for Maryland would be that we would see more of an organic push to because as we know, a lot of that's not great as well. So I feel like the opportunities to do what you say, they are right in front of us. And as I always mention on all of these topics, you don't have to overhaul everything. And in fact, I would encourage you not to do so. If you hear something today that's like, I could do that one thing. So then it doesn't become overwhelming. And my last reminder here is whether or not you're on the journey or you're not on the journey, you're still on the journey. All of us benefit. All of us benefit, whether or not there's a diagnosis in place or not. So use these little tips to start restructuring, perhaps, and nourishing, just as the topic said, the soul. You mentioned a couple of things offline, Jen, and not to put you on the spot, but what I really liked about our prior conversation is that sometimes, just as I mentioned, we start talking and then all of a sudden the person who's listening feels like we are compiling a to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned together that that's the same for us. We have these big, lofty, quote unquote, goals. And then all of a sudden we're feeling stress, which we know is not good for us. So will you take us through the to-do list dilemma and how we move off of yet another thing for someone to do who is feeling overwhelmed? How do we manage that?
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes we might need a to-do list to get going. So
Agreed.
again, just like what you said, we don't need to have 600 things that we want to do. That's part of our ritual, but maybe it's a few things that we work on. And I believe that if it's something that's really good for us, we will continue to do it. And
Yes.
it might not be every single day we have to do it. And I think I was talking about that. Like, I was like, I'm going to meditate every day for 20 minutes. I'm going to do my yoga. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can't do all of those things every
That's
day.
right.
But I pick a few things, and the ones that stick are the ones that I keep doing naturally. So I don't have to always be just checking off my to-do list.
That's right.
I love to write gratitude in a gratitude journal. And it doesn't take me very much time. But some mornings, mm, I'm not feeling it. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to beat up on myself because I didn't get to check it off my list.
Yes.
But when we're making habits, or when we're trying to, do these little things that kind of become habits, we might need to have it on our list for a little while. So it's a tricky one. And I think we call it kind of habit stacking. And if we just keep on adding more and more things to the pile, we are not going to have time. We're going to get overwhelmed and that pile is going to crumble.
Yeah.
So you
Yes.
have to just pick the things that feel good to you and
Well,
are,
and also
yeah.
remembering that we are a culture that is inundated with information. Some of
Mhm.
the things that when I'm working with somebody who's on the cancering journey, we talk a lot about reverse engineering before this diagnosis that's come into play. Meaning, if we change the narrative around the to-do list to things that the way we are pushing for all of us who are goal setters, type A, to the to-do list masters, we're not really going after the things that are on that to-do list. What we're going after is a feeling. We're going after a feeling, how we want to feel when we accomplish X, Y, and Z. So my theory is that when you take a look at options for emotional well-being, I think people are I know people are very smart, and you can identify 2 to 3 things that you already knew made you feel good.
Mhm.
And that's where we're putting our eyeballs and our focus. Because the things that are, I always equate it to like exercise. I'm going to go out and run 10 miles. And the reality is that, am I really going to go out and run 10 miles when what I really wanted to do was take a walk after dinner, nice slow walk with my husband and enjoy those steps that way. I'm
Mhm.
simplifying it, but I feel like it has become, oh, and do this and do this. And if we looked at it a little differently and coming back, as you mentioned, into balance, some of these things are organic in nature. Truly, they are. You are connecting with nature. You're connecting with being grateful. You're setting aside time for prayer, meditation, whatever works for you. It's just that now the situation has required um, you to slow down and take a harder look at it. And it does feel like the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
I just would love to be the ambassador of take the pressure off. Take the pressure off of this. This is ways to decrease pressure. We're just happening to highlight them, right? And so I too, for me, the gratitude journal, there's an app. If you know, there's different way. I like me a good hardcover pen, good old nice flowing pen. But there are so many different ways to get it done. But is that what we're looking for? Or do you want the feeling of being grateful? I want the feeling.
I want the feeling too.
Yeah.
And I feel like, first of all, one of my favorite questions on our intake forms is what brings you joy and what lights,
Mm,
kind of what's your purpose. So that feels really good. And that can help us figure out what might nourish us and nourish our soul. I
mm,
also think that we use that word balance. And I also believe that when we're in balance, we're also more able to be present.
mm,
We're not in that fear mode where we're really, like zingy, like I said, and really stressed out. And we're not in that shoving mode of our emotions and not feeling. So here we are being present. We're hopefully more balanced, and we can use these tools to our advantage, like sitting, writing in a gratitude journal. You're actually really feeling the gratitude instead of
yeah.
what is the next thing on my to-do list.
Mm,
Thinking about the next step, thinking about what else we're going to do that day, but really being present while we're eating,
mm,
having attention around that food, really feeding our emotions, feeding our bodies in a good way,
mm.
feeding our gut. There's just so many
Do you think
important
it's
things.
synonymous with the word? Do you think emotional well-being kind of is in alignment with self-care, or do you think it's a much broader stroke? Because I feel like the emotional well-being, I mean, it certainly does fall in line with self-care, but so does all the other, physical and financial and whatever it is. So how could we break that apart in terms of self-care habits
Mhm.
and emotional well-being?
Yeah. I think, again, thinking about the well-being, being well,
Mm,
you are in a feeling of presence and balance. It's more emotional. And
mm.
those other things that you mentioned are things to help you get there. And for everyone, it's going to be different. So
Yes.
utilizing those self-care things to help bring in balance and that
Nice.
feeling of wellness or well-being in
And
your.
what's customizable are the
Mhm.
tools.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot of sense. We're all hopefully moving in the direction of balance and healing. And
Mhm.
how we get there is very individual. The same way how we navigate this slippery slope of cancer. It's I mean, I believe that it's why we don't have a complete solution is because it presents differently for everybody. So
Mhm.
reaching out and asking, like, what should I do next? It's not that we're all not here. We are here to answer any possible questions that you might have. But this to me is a partnership between your advocate or your nutritionist or your doctor. As you know, my thing is stop giving away your power. It's like Glinda the Good Witch, for those of us who remember the Wizard of Oz. You had it all along. You still have it. You just have to identify it, be aware of it, and then take the next steps on how do you see this playing out? And I love emotions are a tough one because, as we know, with the physical things, we can touch it, we can see it, whatever. Emotional stuff is very hard for all of us, I believe. We've gotten into a way of we've got lots and lots of distractions to avoid those. And sometimes the only way through is the way through,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's not a straight line from
Yeah,
here to here.
that's right.
It's a windy road and up and down. It's hilly. It's not a direct, I'm here and now here I am. I have well-being. I am balanced. I am present. No, it doesn't
Mm,
work that way. And that's where if we're striving for that perfect line, that straight line, we're often going to be disappointed,
I
right?
agree.
So we need to recognize the fact that it's not like all of a sudden you've graduated and now you have wellness or well-being. It's going to come and go. And if you
Yeah.
have those tools, those things, that awareness, those things that have worked for you in the past, that's where you go. You
Yeah.
might get further, you might not get so far off track, or you might not be on such a roller coaster. It is more bendy and rolly. And that I
Mm.
feel like is also well-being.
Awesome, incredible. Now, I this is a bit redundant, but I want to rephrase the question because I'm trying to wear the hat of the people that are listening. If we agree that we're moving in the direction of balance and healing, how do you know with whatever you choose, whatever practices you put in place, whatever tools you've decided to use, what is beyond the word balance? How do I know if I'm being successful in working on this part of it? What are some of the indicators that you're in the flow?
Yeah.
You're working towards it. You got it going on. Keep going. Or conversely, if we're feeling out of balance, you used some adjectives earlier to describe this buzzy kind of frantic feeling. Could you just share a little bit about, I hate to use the word, how do we measure? How do we
Right.
know?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I think again, it's that awareness piece. I think we could all look at the way we are in our day and how we're reacting to certain things.
Mm,
So, and again, it's not that it's always going to be spectacular and perfect. We might need a day where we are crawling into bed and we're like, you know what? I don't want to be around anybody. I'm going
mm,
to lose it. I'm going to cry. I'm going to do whatever. That is okay. I
yes.
think what we find is as we become more in tune with that awareness and that balance and that presence, is that we have fewer times like that and they are shorter. So, an example is like, how quick to react are we and
Mm,
get angry or really emotional about something? How long does it last? Is it, you might notice, oh, I'm not feeling so reactive to things. I'm letting things roll. It's so hard to give that, like, how do we measure it? But I would
right.
imagine that there are ways you can measure. I mean, there are devices. If you want to go down
Mm,
that road, you can track your stress levels, your heart rate. I would say, how are you sleeping?
Yes,
How are you even digesting,
that's
right?
right. Yep.
So if we have a lot of stress, we might find that some people might have, more loose bowels or more frequent bowels. Some others might be more constipated. How is your system working? And again, how are your conversations going? Are you
I,
feeling it in your body? Yeah.
I love that because again, I use that question because I think people want to know, like, how do I know if I'm doing it right?
Yeah.
But the body is really smart. And I think that if we're grounded enough to recognize, as you mentioned, this lag time between event and reaction, and perhaps maybe a doctor's visit or a tough conversation, being able to recognize how your body reacts. But what's exciting to me is I know this from deep breath work that we can cherry pick
Mhm.
our tool based on that feeling. So, for example, if I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling wound tight, my go to strategy is to elongate the exhale. Why? Because I know, number one, I know that works for me and it works for the general population if they know what they're doing. When we slow down breathing out, it signals the body to calm down. So, where I'm going with this is not to open up a rabbit hole of conversation about breathing. It's more about once you know yourself, really know yourself, you can, some tools work sometimes and some tools work other times. And being able to toggle between this, I find that very powerful. I'm not saying you are power. I'm saying powerful in the sense like, once again, like Glinda the Good Witch, you had control all along. We just don't recognize how much we can manipulate ourselves internally and our environment externally to achieve the state that we're trying to get to. So maybe we need to be energized. Maybe we need to relax. We need to do whatnot. It's not to be married to the tool and or to do what Stacy and Jen say. It is your job first is to recognize, to open your eyes and see that this is a thing. And then choosing a couple of things to perhaps bring in or reintroduce or try. And if they don't work, we try a few more.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's it. It's in the beginning, where do you start?
Yeah.
Pick a couple of things. First of all, what are the things that you love? What
Yeah.
brings you joy? What brings you calm? What brings you peace? Start with those things. And
Yes.
it doesn't have to be in the morning right away. Maybe it's before bed. Something I recently recognized was that I have been going to bed, and we could talk about all of this, but first of all, I've been going to bed always with these books that are either, about health and
Yeah.
self-help and all these things. And I'm like, what are you doing? I work in this field all
Yes.
day. And I started reading fiction. And it's
Ooh,
been tremendous. And not that I haven't read fiction before, but again, like I've picked it up again and just really enjoying sort of the beauty in reading something that's not making my brain go to a different place. And that's felt really good.
I'm gonna
So
steal that one. That's me
it's
too. Like we spend all day in it and I'm like,
fun.
oh, a new book about
Yeah.
self-help,
About
about
nutrition or
nutrition.
yeah, yeah. So there's that. There's also a lot of like breath work techniques out
Mm,
there, like with your, the Vita ball and all of these different things. There's meditation again, there's prayer, there's journaling, there's all kinds of really great things. Also sunshine and fresh air,
yes.
exercise, moving our bodies, and sometimes everybody's in a different place.
Mm,
I believe that most people can still move a little bit and get
mm-hmm,
outside or sit near a sunbeam from a window, open
mm.
the window a little bit, even if it's chilly, wrap up in blankets and get that fresh air. So there's so many things we can do that can really help again with our nervous system and bring us into a present, feel better place.
Yeah, you just jogged my memory. I moved my office to a home office, and my husband's so sweet. We he put up a bird feeder outside my window, and I have a very special cardinal that visits.
Mm.
And it's interesting for me. This falls right in line that I'll stop what I'm doing, staring at the screen, And lo and behold, I'll look out and, I've got my whole little variety of birds. That brings me an incredible amount of joy. I almost feel responsible for them, making sure that that bird feeder is appropriately filled with all the right things, that I get the reciprocal joy. I love that. And mine are very, very easy anymore because, like you, I mean, we're running at a fast pace, but it matters tremendously to me beyond just the gratitude, beyond the prayer, beyond the meditation and the breath work. For me, I find incredible calm and almost reflection with a beautiful cup of tea. To me, I just an afternoon of tapping away from the computer for a few minutes and having a cup of tea, maybe looking at those same birds. Again, just sharing with you all that this doesn't have to be sign up, pay for, and do something big. This could be a stroll. It could be listening to music. It can be whatever it is that fills you up and doesn't pull. It feels the main word that Jen used, it just feels good. And we take that for granted because I think we're busy. I think we're moving from doctor's appointments to doctor's appointments. We're worried about next steps. We were worried about whatever it is that these little things just that it seems like it's the first thing that goes away. We get rid of the good stuff first to concentrate on all the stuff that stresses us out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are
And
your favorite? What are your favorite three beyond what you just named?
oh, my favorite three, one is for sure gratitude.
Mm,
And I also I love, like I love to do meditation.
mm.
And I also couple it usually with something else I'm doing. So I just got this, it's a sauna blanket. I didn't
Oh,
just, I've had it for a while, but I will lay in the sauna blanket and get a good sweat on and meditate while I'm doing that.
oh, I
And
love
so
that.
that feels really good. Again, it's like this habit stacking. So what can I kind of do together? So I don't feel like it's like this whole train of things that I might not have a ton of, or, find a lot of time for.
Mm,
So that feels really good. So that sweating and that kind of, it just feels really good, except when it's super hot in the summer. So
yeah.
I might not do it as much in the summer. I find
Mm,
something else. So I'm also, I live in the mountains. And for
lucky
me to
you.
be, I know, for me to be near dirt, it
Mm,
is the best place for me. So if I'm on a trail, whether I'm walking, hiking, running, whatever I feel like, again, it's not like I have to go for a 10-mile run, but if I'm out in nature on the trail, that is where my nervous system is at its best.
mm.
And I'm
And
the
it could
most,
be as something as simple as taking off your shoes and socks and putting your
oh,
feet in the earth. Again,
absolutely.
for people
Yeah.
that are like, no, I'm not hiking.
Yeah.
Listen, the benefits are huge with earthing and being able just to connect with nature. I would say that's a great one. You got a third one?
Well, I think what was I going to say? I think lately this reading
The
piece for
reading, the fiction.
before bed, because I find that, and I do track some of my metrics in terms of my sleep and things. I find that my sleep is so much better now
Mm,
that my phone is turned off. I'm
yes.
tempted to scroll and I'm reading and I turn off the light. I do wear some like blue light blocking,
Mm,
glasses at night, and I just sleep so much better.
that's
It
awesome.
doesn't turn my mind on to think about the next day and then again all the things. Yeah, so those are kind of my faves.
Those are great. I just want to pause for a second and ask our listeners if anybody has an emotional well-being tool that they just love that maybe Jen and I haven't um, talked about that you want to share with us. Go ahead and put that in the chat. I see my friend Seth Schoenman is on the call, so maybe he'll give us a little nugget because I know he values emotional well-being and does all the great things. Anybody want to chime in here? No pressure whatsoever, and we will continue on. I just wanted to give you all a moment to comment on anything that Jen and I have been talking about. Everybody's emotionally so hyper healthy. Jen, our work is done, the mic can drop, and everybody's good to go. I'm just joking. So, as
I,
we
I just
round,
saw
go
somebody
ahead.
put in scents and essential oils,
Oh,
which
yes,
is,
Kelly. I love
yeah,
that.
beautiful. And I love that idea. Do you have any special scents that calm
Uh,
you?
For me, it's always, always lavender something, a lavender blend of everything. But I know that that's not a great scent for everybody. I would say, Jen, though, for me, my favorite essential oil scent has something to do with a citrus note. And
Mm.
yes, they are more energizing, but for me, I find them very grounding. And I think that the reason why this is me totally geeking out, I love me a clean house. And I
Mm.
think that the citrus oil reminds me of clean. And I think that that's why that's so soothing to me as it smells like everything is really, really clean. So, how about you? Do you have a favorite scent?
I'm a fan of eucalyptus. And I think
Oh,
the
yes.
reason why I love that so much is it's probably more uplifting too. However, it makes me think of the spa. So
Ah,
I love it
perfect.
when my house smells like the spa.
Do you see all these wonderful well-being components? We've got prayer. That's a beautiful one. Doing my daily Bible app. I'm gonna go with that must be Halo, and I'm digging it too. Sharon, I'm curious to know which one you use because Halo's my favorite. Tea tree scent. Now, Zoe, that's funny because I very much like tea tree, but it doesn't at all. I do not, that's not calming to me. So that's a really good example because not that I'm negating what you're saying, is just a really good example. Works for Zoe, does not work for Stacy. So being able to toggle between these tools is exactly what we're talking about. There is not, trust me, there is not a perfect formula on any of this. It is the perfect formula that works for you, right? So
I
I
think about
love those.
music too.
Say it
Music's
again.
another thing. Music, whereas some people might really feel good, when
Mm,
something makes you feel good and when something doesn't. So we can
mm.
use that as our gauge throughout the day.
Yes.
And trying to incorporate more of those things, like you're pouring in good things, things that make you feel good, and not doing as much as the other.
I
So
agree. Sharon uses the U version Bible app. I'm going to look into that because like I said, I don't know if you know anything about Halo, but I just very much enjoy that one as well. But great, great idea. In terms of music, I think that that's an interesting one too, because that would be one that I would choose as a tool depending on what I was trying to achieve. Do I want to be energized or do I want to be calm, and picking and choosing um, those modalities for depending on what I'm trying to achieve, that's when the stuff gets really fun. I would also share, going back to this breath work, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about it. Once you get the hang of this, you're going to be all about it because when you know that you can pull yourself in and out of a state like that, using something like a breath technique, that is some incredibly, incredibly powerful um, information for yourself when you realize that you to truly have control. The last thing I'm going to say is what you said, Jen, about energy. Um, I hesitate to open up this can of worms, but it also goes for people. So you know what makes you feel good, and you know what steals from your balance. And I would say at this juncture of wherever you are on this journey, don't dismiss the idea of people filling you up and people pulling from you as one of the ways to evaluate what do you need to be around right now? What brings you joy? The best way I know how to describe it is, have you ever been walking down the street and you're like, oh, I feel like somebody's like looking at me, and it actually moves you to turn around and look. And lo and behold, there's somebody there. Energy, while you can't see it, oh my goodness, you can feel it. So be really attuned to um, I hate to say that dismiss the people that are not filling you up, but while you are healing, that matters as well. Do you want to comment on that, Jen?
yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite topics, to be honest. But I love, like, one of the things that I will use as a visualization tool
Mm,
is kind of taking your energy bubble and you put it around you. And you
mm,
can visualize this a bubble, and it's like your protection.
mm.
And, with certain people, it might need to be a little bit bigger. You
Thicker.
know? Yeah, thicker.
Yeah.
Exactly. made of steel. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like a bigger bubble that can go around you, and you can kind of protect your energy. If
Mm,
things feel like too much, that's when we have to use some of our, I mean, the term boundaries, right? How can we say, actually, this is what I need for myself right now,
mm.
really prioritizing yourself and what your needs are. We can't always do that. So that's why that energy bubble, can really be helpful. So you're still nourishing yourself and you're protecting yourself. Um, yeah.
I agreed. And again, for our folks that are on the cancering journey, this is like who's in your world that goes to appointments with you that it keeps it calm?
Mhm.
Who sends to wind everybody up? Again, we're not telling you to kick people out. We're just sharing with you this part for emotional well-being. It counts. And recognizing where you need to, if there's somebody in your world that is kind of pulling from that calm, being able to adjust time spent there while you're trying to address other things, I think is important. And so these are just little ideas that stacked up, as Jen mentioned, they go a long way. Um, Kristen in the chat said when she's feeling frazzled, she'll say to Alexa, play healing frequency music on Apple Music. Oh my goodness, all these little tidbits that could open up a huge topic. But Kristen's absolutely right that music has frequency and energy. And we know higher frequencies equate to certain things and lower frequencies equate to other things. But ultimately it comes down to how does it resonate with you. So I think that's an incredible way to do so. So I'm hopeful that in our 45 minutes or so that you all have gotten quite a few ideas on how to either strengthen this pillar of wellness for yourself or to get started. I want to stop talking and give you all an opportunity to ask Jen anything you want. If the chat is quiet, I'm going to ask Jen to talk about before we bump off the Nest program that they have working at Remission Nutrition. Why? Because it beautifully lends itself to some of what we're talking about today. I'll let her go in deeper, but I want to see first, does anybody have any questions on emotional well-being as it relates to food, as it relates to emotions, anything? Just fire it off. And in the meantime, perhaps Jen can get us started and just tell us a little bit about the Nest. So curious because it just got started. You just really are really in the beginning stages of this, and I love where it's going. And I would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit more.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to mention too that if anyone has not listened to there's a podcast that was done with Evelise fairly recently with Raj from Liberate.
Yes.
And he is just a wonderful human. So if somebody's looking for sort of a deeper dive into this sort of emotional healing place, I have gone through the program.
What's it called
And
again?
it's called Liberate,
Liberate.
Liber 8. And they're able to use a lot. They use a lot of the metrics, and it's been wonderful for a lot of our clients and myself. It was very powerful. So no matter what journey, where you are in your journey, it can be really helpful to sort of maybe uncover some of these past traumas and heal from them. So I just
Mm,
wanted to mention that because it can be pretty heavy. So we're talking about a lot of the really feel good things
mm,
that can really help as well in the journey of healing emotionally.
yes. Maybe
Um,
Kristen, let me stop you there real quick, Jen. Kristen, if you're able to find that link quickly, no worries. If not, maybe you could put that in the chat for our listeners. And if not, I will put them in the show notes. I'll make sure that anything that we discuss that has a link attached to it, including the nest, we'll give our listeners that in the playback.
there it
So
is. Okay.
Liberate with Raj, we got it. And
Yeah.
Evilise already did it. I mean, excuse me, Kristen already did it. She put
Okay.
the link for the podcast and the Liberate link directly to Raj's program. So that's great.
Awesome. And I would
And
say, like I said, it's a deeper dive. And it's not like here's my starting point, right? We talked about a lot of the really good starting points. So we have a program, it's a membership based program at Remission Nutrition called the Nest. And it's not a ginormous group. It's very intimate. It's lovely. We meet once a week. Yes, EMDR, Sharon, amazing as well. And so that's a
We'll
great
come back to that one. Finish the
chat.
nest
Yeah.
and you can talk
Love
about
it.
EMDR. That's the second time I've heard
Yeah.
somebody using that this week.
Yeah, that's great. So anyway, we meet once a month, and there's always a topic. So we'll talk about a various, health topic, oncology, nutrition topic, and then we open it up at the end to sort of like this to, you know, comments, group support. It's been lovely for that, and any questions. And we do a lot of recipe sharing and all kinds of different ideas, integrative therapy sharing. It's been really amazing. So
So
we're
it's
in.
it's it's different though, Jen. I mean, I hate to like I want to keep on plugging the
Yeah,
nest
yeah.
with you because we have support groups, right?
Mhm.
And then we have your services at Remission Nutrition where we're really getting rolling our sleeves up and we're really working on nutrition as it relates to somebody's specific diagnosis. What I want to highlight that you just mentioned is that for me, for my family, our experience on the cancering journey, what I love about the nest is the fact that I think at a certain point in time, we're information overload. What I think my family appreciated, and what I think people who are really working hard on this journey, it's about lifestyle and behavioral content that lends itself to, yes, I understand that it was this, but how, give me the how to's, the tools, if you
Yeah.
will. And I like both. Don't get me wrong. The content is important. I want to be educated, but what I'm really interested in with the nest is, as you mentioned, the recipes, the how to go deeper in this, what I need to do for X, Y, and Z. And I think that to find high quality how to's is challenging on this journey because everybody is chiming in and has an opinion on what you should do.
Yeah.
That to me was very confusing. And when you find solid
Mhm.
resources that you know that you can trust and bring it together in a community format, oh, that just makes my heart full because it's scary.
Mhm.
And knowing that you have a go-to place where you can come and ask Jen, Karen, your whole team
Yeah.
to be able to really work the nitty-gritty of this, tell me what to do is what I really feel like most of us want. I'll learn it and then I need my hand held to teach me the way. And I just want to encourage all of you to check out the nest.
Yeah.
Jen is clearly a dear colleague and friend, and I trust her with you all immensely. We refer to Mission Nutrition consistently, and the different levels of service I think are important for us to remember. It's not just a one-stop shop, that they're going to give you options in terms of service delivery and pricing and whatnot in a way that you can pick and choose is where I'm going with that. So
Yeah.
check her out. When's the next one? It's tonight, right?
It is, yeah, and we do a membership, so we'll open up membership again beginning of the summer, and then
Good.
it'll be a 6 month thing. We're working on how we might be able to change that up a little bit, so at any
Yeah.
time someone could join. So that's on the list of things to
Cool.
explore. But I wanted to say too, the word that you use that is so perfect was community.
Mm,
And I think that's what we found. So we've been doing this for a long time, working with people on a one-on-one basis. We roundtable our clients and different cases every week as a team.
mm,
And you see all of these common threads. You
mm.
see these our clients that feel like they are on an island by themselves,
Yes.
and they don't realize that maybe there are many people dealing with the same questions, the same things. So we can support one another too and learn
Yeah.
from one another. And that's really a beautiful thing. So we don't have all the answers. I learned so much every day from my clients
Yes.
and what
Yeah.
they're, and even from a resource perspective. Have you heard about this thing? Have you seen this? It's really a great way for sharing as well.
Mm,
And so I just love it. And that's what we're really recognizing, this need for community, especially with we're all online so much, right? You're working
mm.
from home now. I'm
Yes.
working from home. We're all, and so it even though we're still online, we're here in a group like we are today. So it's
Yeah.
pretty special.
Well, and being able to, all of us are in different places on the journey, but being able to join community where, as a whole, the way we're going to get after this dreadful diagnosis is by strengthening community. Doesn't mean that you're staying stuck in the little C word and that's your identity. What we're doing together is community of healing, I again would just it really bothers me, the narrative around this diagnosis, because I think that there's strength in numbers, number one. Number two, if we change the conversation to all of us have cancer or know somebody with cancer, instead we're all on this healing path together, and you just happen to be connected with some incredible resources that have the latest and the greatest, and we are all coming together to learn from one another. There's not one sage on the stage per se. We're the guide on the side. We're talking about many things, but perhaps maybe you knew something from the East Coast that we weren't aware of. I think that there's power in this, and God willing, all of us will move in a direction of healing, whatever that looks like, and we'll be able to support the people behind us, next to us, and in front of us. End of discussion. That's a service mindset. And I know you're doing it, and I know we're doing it. And collectively, I hope that we're going to really have some beautiful changes in the very near future. So thank you for all you do, Jen. Truly, I adore you, and I always love our chats. Anybody? Wait, you got to comment on EMDR real
Oh,
quick
EMDR,
before.
I'm not a specialist in EMDR, but I do have many, many of our clients that have done this. And I would say that I've heard really amazing things.
Yeah.
So,
Sharon,
yes.
you want to share anything else about that? You're welcome to come on camera and off mute. If not, no worries. We'll let folks kind of, maybe we'll do that as a topic at a later date.
Yeah.
So if nothing from Sharon, this is about our time. So
Can I
Jen,
say three
yeah,
things?
of course. You could say four things.
I just wanted to go back to choosing faith over fear,
Yes, ma'am.
recognizing food is medicine, and our thoughts and our emotions can also be our medicine.
Love, love,
So,
love, love. We may have to put that in the show notes. That is this. You didn't have to listen to a single thing. Those three things are your guiding North Star right there. So I want to say thank you, especially to Jen. Thank you for Kristen setting us up. And for the rest of you that are sitting on this call, please, it is wonderful to have you with. But if there is somebody in your world that needs this message, you will see the replay link. And I want to invite you to spread that ripple effect for our community. And cheers to healing.
mm,
Bye, you guys. Have a wonderful time. I'll see you next month. And Jen, love you. Talk to you
mm,
all soon.
thank you.